You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad and creator who has been living in my 1997 Ford van since January 1st of 2019. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deliberate Living podcast. I am your host, Holly Priestley, and this is take 2 of this particular episode because the last time we recorded it, there was a little mix-up and there wasn't any audio, but this is something a little bit new for the Deliberate Living show. A lot of the folks that I interview for this particular podcast have been doing whatever lifestyle they've been doing for a while, usually for at least a year or two, and I haven't had a lot of people on who are brand new to whatever lifestyle. And so this week I wanted to bring on 2 of my favorite women who are brand new to the vanning lifestyle and who are doing it in a very same but different kind of way, and hear their experiences about the purchasing a van process, the building out a van process, the first month or 2 they've been living in their vans full time, because it's been 2.5 years since I did that. And I kind of remember bits and pieces of it, but it's different when you're in it. So I wanted to get the experience of some women who are in it and who are kicking ass, and yeah, that's what we're going to do this week. So we have Meg Myers and Amy Floyd. Hello, ladies.
Hello. Hello.
Amy, let's start with you. Do you want to give a little bit of background about who you are and what you were doing before you moved into your van?
Oh, okay. So I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I went to the University of Arizona for my undergraduate degree, and I got a degree in wildlife conservation and management. And then I started working at a bee lab, and I really liked it, and decided to get my master's in entomology and insect science, studying honeybees and pathogens, and I did that in a couple years, and then graduated in 2019 and kept working at that bee lab for a little while after that. And in that time, I had met Logan, who lives in a van, and I saw his van, and I was like, this seems great for you, but I could not live out of this. And at the time, I had never even heard of van life. I was not aware that it was, I had no idea people did that. And he was the only person I knew who did that. And then the following year, he came back to Tucson, and I got to meet Holly, and I saw her van, and I was like, this van I could live in. You can stand in this van, you can sit in this van, you can cook in this van, you can it seemed much more like a realistic, oh, I could do that. And then it was said in that it was, you kind of have to do it your way, and it's different for everyone. And I was starting to feel antsy in Tucson, maybe it was time to explore somewhere else. And I wasn't super happy with my job there anymore, and felt like there were opportunities for growth in other ways, but I wasn't sure where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. And in the wildlife field, any kind of research, sciencey field, things are usually in seasons, and I didn't want to move to Oregon and sign a year lease and then only have a job for 6 months of those that time or something. So I was like, I should just move into a van, and I can take these jobs that might not pay as well, or might be 3, 6, 9 month appointments, and be able to move around and do different jobs in different places. And while I was also having that thought process, I also started a little tiny honey business called Honey Wagon, which is my van's namesake. And I had my own personal hives, and I had a ton of honey, so I started selling it, and it blew up. And it's one of my favorite things about my life. And so I just now it's something that I'm looking at growing more while I have the freedom in the van to take opportunities in all kinds of ways. So Now I live in a Ford Transit high top named Hamilton, the Honey Wagon, and I built it out with my grandpa, and it's my second favorite thing in the world after my dog.
That's awesome. And I think what you said there is really important. Like, you kind of have to do it your own way. Figure it out your own way. Figure out your build your own way, your finances your own way, your lifestyle your own way.
Yeah. Everyone's needs are different. So everyone's situation, everyone's house will be different. Yeah. So absolutely. It's definitely very customized to me.
Meg, you want to give a little bit of your backstory about how you got into your super customized, totally unique to you van?
It is. There's so much about Amy's story that just like hits for me, and so my beginnings are quite different. 2 years ago, I found myself in this 13-year partnership that I was ready to end, and like our relationship had just kind of plateaued. Every single year was starting to look like the year before it. We were successful. We had good jobs. We had a really nice condo in Somerville, just outside of Boston. And my husband and I were kind of living our lives indoors. And I was mastering sewing. He was getting his master's, and I was so bored. And so I didn't feel like this was it. So I chose to end our relationship. And I was so lost because there was like no transgression to blame or anything to be angry about that I could point at. And so without this partner that I had had for my entire adult life, I was super lost. And that really opened me up to like every single possibility. And so last spring, I started dating this mountain biker who was living out of a self-converted Sprinter. And his van was the first van that I had ever seen. And it was the first time that I learned that, like, people live this way. Like I mentioned, I was an indoor person, and like, Amy, I was like, this is great, but, like, what you're doing is it's not for me. His van was, like, such a bachelor pad. It was, like, 2x4s and Rubbermaids. But it functioned so well for him as a tiny home, and it, like, clearly was meeting all of his needs. He could store, like, 3 mountain bikes in his van. And so I spent the like last coronavirus summer climbing and hiking and staying in his van on weekends, and I absolutely like fell in love with van life. And so at the same time, I was mid-divorce, and I needed to figure out where to go. I'm from Southern Colorado. My condo and my adult life were all in Massachusetts, and I knew that like probably neither one of those were right, and I didn't want to sign one lease at a time and like bop around and figure it out. And also, because of the pandemic, I was working remotely, and I was doing really, really well at that. And so work approved me to work remotely full time. And so they were super supportive. And so last summer, I committed to minimizing. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do a van, but like not in Massachusetts. I can't build it out like on the city street here. I know people do, but I knew that wouldn't go for me. Mm-hmm. So in August, I began this kind of nomadic life by Airbnb hopping. I put all of my gear in my hatchback, and me and the cat and whatever fit in the hatchback bopped around New England, mostly New Hampshire. And we lived out of Airbnbs, and I loved it. Like, I was hiking in different places and seeing new parts of the state. But I was also constantly like packing everything up and then unpacking and settling into a new place. And I hated that. And so that was really, when I was like, okay, it's time to get my van. Like, I love being in new places, but like I'm with the packing and the unpacking. And so I returned to Colorado, where I grew up, the San Luis Valley. It is rural. Holly can attest.
Oh yeah.
And I moved on to my grandparents' potato farm, which is no longer an active farm, but it had a shop, and it had all of the tools. And I spent every waking moment that I wasn't working on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and I found my van in about 6 weeks. And so I am in a gold Ford E250 high top, 2007. Looks like Holly's van.
Looks a lot like mine.
It's unreal.
It's 10 years newer, and they look so similar.
They're the same.
Yeah.
But the insides are so different.
Oh my God.
Like, shout out, like, you can build your home however you want to build your home to suit your needs.
Yeah.
And so when I bought my van, it was a passenger wheelchair transport van that had been used by, like, a driver service. So I gutted it, and then I spent last winter building it out from scratch. And it was about 5 months, and I was working full-time at my day job and more than full-time on my build. And then I moved into my van at the end of April and have been full-timing ever since. So it's like a shade over 2 months at this point.
I think that's awesome. I like both of your stories. I like the fact that you were both kind of like, I know I need change, but I don't know exactly what kind of change. And so I'm going to make it as fluid as possible, but as like stable as possible, because yeah, like Meg said, like moving in from place to place to place is annoying as fuck. And having your van and having everything you own with you at all times makes it so much easier to just pop around and see maybe where you want to be. And very conveniently, you both have jobs now that are, you know, supportive of vanning and allow that to be a reality. I'm really curious, in maybe those few weeks before you moved in, or like the few weeks just after, was there any part of you that was like, oh shit, what have I done? This is a terrible idea. What am I doing? Like, was there any kind of like fear involved, or any of that? Meg, let's start with you.
You know, I moved into my van a little bit quicker than I expected to, by about a month, because the home that I was staying in needed to have other people in it. And so I moved in at this like really accelerated rate, and that was terrifying because it was a lot of like shit. It's never going to be ready. Like there's no mattress, and the plumbing isn't hooked up yet. Like all of these wires, and I got to get all of my stuff out of the house and into the van. And then I realized, like, even though I'd moved to Colorado with only what fit in the hatchback, that was too much stuff for my van. Because, like, when it's in the hatchback, you're like, I'm going to, like, what is it, Jenga? Tetris. I'm going to Tetris this stuff in. I don't have to walk around. Like, I just need to move it. And in your van, you need to, like, get up and walk around. So I had too much stuff. And that was so startling to me as someone who had, like, minimized what fit in my car. And then moving in right after that, it became shit, where do I sleep? I thought I was going to have like all the time in the world to like finish my van and like move in leisurely and like do a weekend trip and like suss it out. And so it was like, nope, you're full time right now. And so I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to find parking spots. And I live in the middle of nowhere, like it's BLM, like almost 360 degrees. And like I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
That's actually funny because, Holly, you joined me for my first boondocking night on public lands, which was really wonderful. And it's just like, really? We can park here? Like the road is there? And
yeah,
okay.
You could just park.
Here we go.
Park here.
I didn't know that. You had to tell me that.
It helps to have people who have already been doing vanning, I think. I think you guys have both, like, Amy was able to really integrate with a group of vanners before she was in her van, and I think that's been really helpful before, and I know it's been helpful since. Amy, did you have any like oh shit moments right before or right? I know your story is like super similar, where it was like, oh, I thought I was gonna have all this time, and then nope, no time at all.
Yeah. So the original plan was to like do a road trip across the country and like to go to my sister's graduation and then come back with my sister. And so I was going to have like a couple weeks to like adjust to being in the van and like kind of unpack when it made sense and get settled and like put things where I wanted them and figure out all the little kinks and stuff in those first like couple weeks. And then the van wasn't quite done. The inside wasn't quite done when I needed to go to Savannah. So I didn't get to do that road trip, which in hindsight may be an okay thing. But then I got back and I had to move into the van in like a day, and I had downsized from a house, but not completely because I wasn't sure how much room I was going to have in the van. So I was kind of panic putting stuff in the van. Had to get to Davis for my job on Monday. I drove like 15 hours on Sunday with my sister through like the windiest wind of my life, and anyone who has a high top vehicle knows that wind is like the worst thing in the world. So
scary.
Like, yeah, the drive was like would have been fine, but the wind was just like, what? And my sister drove part of it too, thank God, because my forearms were dying.
It's exhausting to drive a sailboat in the wind on the highway.
Yeah. So then I got to Davis, and we got here at like 1 a.m, and then she had to be at the airport at like by 5:30 the next morning. So I woke up at 4:15, and then it kind of like set in after I dropped her off at the airport that like, okay, now I'm completely alone in this city. I had been here for a few weeks before, but had people visiting back and forth. So this was the first time I was in Davis, completely alone, and not have like a home base to go to. I was in my home base that moves with me, and so I was like, where do I go? I don't have to be at work till 9. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, what do I even do? And so I like went to the park and like tried to like collect my thoughts. And that week was rough. I was having the same parking issues. I think stationary vanning has that huge challenge. That's not you can't just go find the public land. And the center of California, where Davis is all private land. It's all agriculture. There isn't public land nearby. There's no like forest service road nearby I can go hang out on. So it was kind of figuring out where in town I could park for that first little bit. And I realized that very quickly, I realized that was not sustainable for me. And I needed to have a reliable, safe place to park every night, or I was going to never sleep, and it was not going to last long. So I ended up like kind of cold calling a bunch of businesses and farms in the area near Davis, and luckily I found a lady who could relate. She had lived in a car in Hawaii for a little while training horses, and she was understood that having a safe place to park makes a huge difference. So I park on her land, and I pay her a little bit every month. And the more I help out on the farm, the less I pay every month, which is more experience and fun stuff for me because I love working with animals. So so now I have a place in Davis that I can reliably park, but that first week I was like, there's no way. I can't do this. I have to quit my job so I can move, because I wasn't willing to give up the van. But I was like, I can't do this. This doesn't work. But yeah, that was there was some doubt in that first couple days. Mostly sleep deprivation caused.
Oh my God, yeah. Absolutely. Parking can be such a hassle. I think parking is one of the biggest learning curves of living in a van, for sure. And I mean, I've got a few podcasts and blogs and things about it, and there's a lot of resources online to like, use this app and go this place, and I camped like exact coordinates, but actually like doing it and figuring it out for yourself and like pulling up someplace and being like, I can stay here all night? How is this going to be okay? Or like pulling up to a place and maybe being like, ooh, I don't want to stay here all night. That doesn't seem safe.
Right. People's comfort zones are different.
Yeah, and your comfort zone changes the longer you're in a van, right? Like when Meg and I went camping, like I didn't know the area we were in, but I knew like what public land was and how I could camp on it. And she knew the area, but she didn't have the experience with, camping on it in a van and all of that. And so I think that absolutely, like both of your stories point to parking being kind of a hassle. Are there any other major like cons or complications in the first month or two that you've been living in your vans? Amy?
I have had some power issues that I'm working out because I was a bad listener and I was stubborn while I was building my van, and I wanted the fridge that I wanted and did not put a 12-volt fridge in, and I thoroughly regret it, and don't at me. But I will. I'm working on replacing it. My grandpa's like determined to replace it when I see him next weekend. yeah, I have an AC fridge, so it pulls a lot of power, and because of the heat in Davis, I have to park in the shade most of the time for my dog, and so if I'm in the shade, I don't get solar, and so my fridge is not cold most of the time. So that figuring out the balance. Like now it's like, oh, well, just turn your inverter off at night. There's like a 40-degree swing here, so it gets pretty cold at night, so it's fine. And I just turn my inverter off at nighttime and turn it back on when the sun is up, and we're figuring it out. But that was definitely a bump to figure out once I was in the van, because, I mean, figuring out my systems and where I want things and whatnot is just kind of part of life anywhere you are. But not having reliable power is something I hadn't had to deal with before. But we're figuring it out.
I mean, I've been in my van for 2.5 years, and I still have power issues. And I have the similar power issues to you, and I don't even have a fridge, 12-volt or AC or anything. And I still turn my inverter off at night because I know it'll still drain itself. And then you have that balance of like, well, I need solar, so I have to be in the sun, but I don't want to roast because my van turns into an oven, so you want to park in the shade. And yeah, I mean, it definitely complicates otherwise simple things. You've never had to worry about having reliable power in your previous houses and apartments. And now all of a sudden, you have to be very aware of your consumption.
Yes, which isn't a bad thing.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's really good to be mindful of, your power consumption, your water consumption, your trash, and all those things that you get very intimately familiar with living in a tiny, tiny space. Meg, what are some of the biggest complications you've had in your first 2 months?
I mean, the week I moved into my van, I had food poisoning on my second night. So the van and I got to know each other really well. And then I got my second vaccine shot a few days later. And so it was really hard to be really sick twice in a row in the same week. And it's just like, God, what am I doing? Because it was hot and it wasn't that comfortable. But after that, it really felt like, okay, I got this. Like I did that. What I didn't pick up on right away that has been super important to me, and I've just learned this in maybe the last couple of weeks, is how to live around my van. And so I can be inside all day if it's rainy and crummy as it's been in New England. I can be inside and I can be happy, but it gets I get a little bit stir crazy. And so now it's okay, I need to roll up and throw out the big tapestry as my carpet. And I've got a hammock next to the van and a couple of camping chairs. It's just me, but the cat gets her own chair too. And so, yeah, I mean, absolutely. She's in my passenger seat right now. She's happy. But learning how to, if I can't go for a hike for whatever reason, or if I can't go out and do the things that I love to do, how to not just sit inside my van and read, but have this beautiful little home base. And so I spend just as much time sitting right next to my van as I do in my van. And I've been so much happier since I figured out how to roll up and just set everything up in a few minutes. And then it's okay, we're really good. The other big challenge, I would say, it wasn't a systems thing, although I will say where do I empty my gray water is a perennial question that just kind of getting over what I expected things to be for me. So I was I'm gonna go on an adventure and I'm gonna park in a new place every few days, and I'll work during the day, and then I'm gonna go on these hikes and see all of these places, and that actually doesn't work for me. I want to find a place where I know my parking is safe, where I can roll out my tapestry, my chairs, my hammock, and just be. And so I had to get over kind of putting the pressure on myself to go do all of the things. And I immediately, as soon as I moved into my van, a couple weeks later, I drove to Massachusetts, which is where work is for me, to check in with work. And I've been basing out of New Hampshire, and I'm I'm going to go to all of these places. And today I put pins in the map everywhere I had slept. And I was oh, the White Mountains. I came to the White Mountains of New Hampshire for 2 months. And I've been around in other places, but I'm okay with that. But that definitely took a little bit of well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And kind of accepting that no, I like to just post up in a spot for a long time. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. I think that also could change and probably will change. My first year in the van, I traveled all the time. I went everywhere. I was driving like every day. I was not posting up. I did not have a tapestry to put outside. I barely put up my hammock. Like I was just going. I was doing the tour, the first year tour. And then last year I had to slow down because of COVID and because of a new relationship and lifestyle changes and all of that. And now I'm like you, where I'm like, oh, I have to drive. Is it even worth it? Like it's like I just want to like get someplace and hunker the fuck down and like not drive again for a week, which requires that like again how much water you have, how much produce you have. Like if you really want to hunker down and not have to drive anywhere, you need to be able to do that. And that's a totally different way of thinking than like, oh, I'll just be, driving again in 3 days. I'll pass a gas station or a grocery store. I'll get water. I'll throw trash, whatever. Like you still have a lot of things to focus on, and it's still a lot of complicated things, but they're just different things, and they shift with your speed of travel.
Yeah, and I've found that if I can do housework once a week, so for me that is I go get groceries, I empty my gray, I have a composting toilet, like I take care of my pee jug, and let's see what else. Like that's pretty much it. Like maybe get gas, but if I do that once a week, like I'm super solid, and I don't need to go anywhere. And it's funny because today in New Hampshire, I don't know, the heat index was like high 90s. And there's a lake like 3 miles away, and I couldn't be bothered to want to like start up the van and like go for a lake swim. And so instead, I know that I'm pretty good on water. It's the beginning of the week. I filled up over the weekend. So I just took like an outdoor shower real quick. And I'm like, okay, like that was like freshening up time, and like I got wet and now I'm good. And I didn't have to drive. And it's amazing. But I'm also someone who, at the end of the week, I'm going to head back to Colorado because New England is too hot and muggy and buggy. And I've planned this like 3,000-mile trip that I'm going to do, maybe over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, maybe over the course of 6 weeks. I don't know. I was going to be here for I was going to be in New England for 3 weeks, and it's been like 9. Because I like staying put. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, man. I'm in the complete opposite boat.
Yep.
I want to be moving, and I can't. My job is stationary. I have to be here, and it's in person. So I'm, like, itching to go places, and I can't. So I'm in a very different boat.
Yeah.
The anxiety of where can I park that is safe and also get good enough cell signal that I can do my digital job, which is, like, I do so many Zoom meetings. Like, it's just, like, once I find like the trifecta of like is quiet and beautiful, can park here, does have cell signal, like then I'm good.
Yeah,
I wish those spots were everywhere. I'd be on the move all the time. But even with the densely populated areas in New England, like Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, I can't find those places. That's not city streets, and that's not beautiful. So that doesn't even fit my Venn diagram.
It's not the trifecta in that situation. But I think that, this just goes to show even further that, like, you have to do van life the way you want to do van life. And everybody wants it slightly differently. And, your needs might evolve, like incredible service right now. And, those could change in the next 12 months. And I mean, I know your lifestyles are going to change in the next 12 months. And that's really exciting. What do you think are some of the best parts, the biggest pros of moving into the van? I know you guys have both said, like, I would give up my job before I'd give up my van. I'd give up, you'd give up almost anything over the van. And you've only been with the van now for like a matter of months. Like, what is it that is making that such a, for sure, cemented foundational piece of your life? Meg.
Oh, me first.
Yeah.
I have a life in 2 different places at this point. I have my chosen family in New England. I moved here when I was 18, and I didn't leave until I was 33. So this is where my people are. But I am a Westerner, like through and through. I am Colorado, and my family is all back in Colorado. And so I love that I came out here to check in with work. And it's like 3 weeks, and then like I'm going back to Colorado because that is home and that's who I am and that's where I want to be. And like I said, it's been like 9 weeks. I love that flexibility and getting to be with my people as long as I feel like it. I don't think there's a single friend that I have in this region who I have not like at least waved at in passing or spent time with, which is really special. And I've always been a minimalist. Like I don't like things. I don't like stuff. Even in my van, I'm like, I have too many things. But like, I mean, I use those books. Like I use that sewing machine, and like, goodness knows somebody's going to play Scrabble with me someday, and it's going to be amazing. So like, I'm going to use that too.
I'll play Scrabble with you as soon as you get back.
You're the one that convinced me to put Scrabble back in the van. Yes. So. Like the minimalism thing, like I don't miss stuff. I don't miss belongings. But like I said before, I hate packing and unpacking. And so this really has opened me up to adventure and experiences. This is going to sound really contrary to what I just said, but while I've been here, like I've gone climbing in New York. I've done like a girls' weekend up in Vermont. I've went to the Maine coast and like hung out with friends there. And those happen like back-to-back weekends. And there's no way that I would have done that before if I was like, I have to like pack up all of my stuff, and then I'm like going to get home on Sunday night and like wait 4 days to unpack. It's a pain in the butt, and then I have to like pack up all my stuff again. Like I wouldn't have had all these like great experiences. But now it's just like, you know, friend in Maine is like, hey, you want to come hang out? And I'm just like, can I park there? How's your internet? She's like, it's all great. And I'm like, sure, like it's 4 hours, I'll be there. So I'm so much more open to like just going and doing fun things and having those adventures than I would have been, because I'm not fatigued by travel. I have everything I need right here. That's going to keep me at it for a really, really long time. So there's so much of the country I haven't seen. And the bummer / wonderful thing is like I've made brand new friends since I've been traveling around here, and I'm like, well, shit, and I'm gonna have to come see you again. I'm gonna go home through Michigan and make friends there, and I'd be like, well, now I gotta go see those friends. And so it's just gonna get better being able to see more people as I have more people in more places.
Yeah, totally agree. I feel like living in the van has definitely given me more of an opportunity to be present at more things that I wouldn't have been present for otherwise. But also, and I think Amy will definitely feel this one, that, you know, if you've been around people for so long, your whole life, and you see them like every day or a couple times a week, then when you leave, you feel like you're missing out. So there's kind of a balance between I'm around more and I can see you more, but then those people that you're moving away from, you're not living down the street from anymore, you know, you see less, and then you have kind of that like push and pull between the two, and it can be really hard to balance. Amy, what do you think are the best parts of living in a van that have you like, I would give up my wonderful job to live in a van more? What's doing that?
I should disclaimer that, because I do love my job. My job here is amazing. My coworkers are amazing. And it would be hard to quit, but I don't see myself giving up my van anytime soon. But the amazing parts of, I don't know, I think the ease of it all is definitely something for me too. I hate packing and unpacking as well, and this week is in the hundreds in Davis, so I'm in a hotel again, and I hate it. I hate trying to, I'm like, oh, god damn it, that's down in the van, like, and I hate it, and so I get the ease of things, but I also, it's like one of the most empowering things I've ever done in my life is building the van was by far the most empowering thing, but living in the van is also every single day I prove to myself something else. For a long time I was just surviving. I was just day to day going through the motions, just surviving. And since I've been in the van, I actually feel like I'm living, and that is something I don't want to give up. I don't want to feel like I'm settling anymore. So I think that's something that's going to keep me in here doing what I want to do when I want to do it for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I fully agree. Like, people ask me all the time about what's the best part about living in a van, you know, expecting some kind of like, oh, it's the freedom to go anywhere I want. And or like I get to wake up in beautiful places, or you know, whatever. But for me, it's always been that sense of capability that comes along with it. You know, like
I don't have that freedom right now.
Yeah. But you have that sense of like empowerment and capability because you did hard things that you didn't know how to do. You taught yourself how to do them, or you just fucking figured it out on the way, or whatever. And like that sense of like, I don't know how to wire up a solar panel or a battery because that's fucking terrifying. I don't care who you are. But then you do it and you don't blow yourself up, and you're like, huh. Would you look at me? Would you look what I did? Like,
my proudest moment was I wired all the lights in my van to the switch, and I was just like, look at what I did! I knew nothing about electrical, and now I did this, and just
yeah, exactly.
That's the best moment when you do the thing, and you're like, well, I'm gonna flip the switch. What's gonna happen?
Meg, I remember when you did your stories about doing your electrical, I was sitting there, I was watching my phone, and I saw the lights turn on, and I was like, woo! Like, in my van in the woods, I was so excited, and my dog was like, the fuck was that? But I was so excited, because you had been sharing your build the whole way, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great.
And it usually was, but there are definitely moments that weren't, and I did my build in isolation where there was no Wi-Fi and there was no cell signal. So there was no, like, let me just Google that real quick and see what the internet says I should do. There was, like, stepping back with my dad who like, he helped me like a dad would on the build, where he'd be like, here's a big dangerous tool and I'm going to show you how to use it and want you to use it for 10 minutes. Make sure you're not going to chop your fingers off. And then he would disappear and be like, I'm going to let her have this really empowering moment where she's going to just use the tool for the next 2 hours, and then it's going to get complicated. And, like, magically, he would, like, show up 2 hours later, and I'd be like, Dad, it's great, but I have this one question. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, like, here's the answer. And then he would, like, magically float away. Like, the man nailed it. But so, wow, cut that out. I did my build almost entirely solo by myself with, like, no internet. And it was a lot of just, like, how do I do that? And then, like, taking videos, because I knew that, like, what I was doing was, like, incredible and hard, and that I would want to remember that and be able to look back on that and be like, no, I did the thing. And I love it, because people come in my van, they're just like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, who did this? And it's like, I did this, fuckers. Like, you see how that countertop is rounded just right on the edge? Like, I learned how to use a router, and, like, look at my, like, stupid cupboards, and they have, like, I have wallpaper with, like, animals wearing hats.
Oh my God, it's so like, cute.
And they're just like, how did you have this idea? And I'm like, I literally didn't know what to do. So I was a quilter, and, like, I used that knowledge to, like, build a van. And there's some things about my van that are really atypical, which I didn't know at the time. I was just like, I figured it out. Like, makes sense to me. And that's so cool and so empowering. But rambling, nothing gets any better. Sorry, I'm on the phone. Sorry. Oh, okay, will do. The neighbors want me to come visit.
Oh, that is so nice.
I'm rambling. She's been watching the cat play outside for a couple of days, so she's just like, what's your deal? But like the moment when you like flip the switch, the thing works, or yeah, that's the most empowering moment. I could talk about building all day. That could be a separate episode.
It really could be.
Things I learned while I was building.
I mean, I know your build also allowed you to get a lot closer to your grandpa, because he helped you with your build, and both of you have, I mean, a dad and a grandpa who came in and like swooped in at just the right time and handled all of that. Amy, what was that experience like for you? I mean, I've met your pops, and he is like the sweetest human being on the planet.
He is a saint. I am so grateful that I have him in my life. He had when he retired, he got into woodworking, and he had built my house in Tucson before I moved into the van. Was basically furnished by pops. My coffee table, my end tables, like my bookshelf. Like, I had so many things that he had made for me. And when I started thinking about the van, I was like, he would love that big of a project, because it's all stuff he's never done before. We just have to figure it out. And I reached out to him, and I was like, I was worried about what he would think about me living in the van and that kind of lifestyle choice. And I don't know why I was worried about it, because he is the least judgmental person I know. And I was like, so this is my plan, and this is why I want to do it, and would you want to help me build it out? And he was like, absolutely. When are we starting? What are we doing? What kind of van? And we both wake up really early, so I'd have emails from him already when I would wake up about like, oh, I found this van on Craigslist, or whatever. What do you think about this design for this? And it was really fun. And we finally found this van in Denver, and we drove to Denver to pick it up. Holly happened to be there at the same time, and I was so grateful she was there that day. And like, I got in the driver's seat and immediately panicked, and I was like, I cannot drive a vehicle this big. And she was like, yes, you can. You're gonna have to figure it out. So you can do it. Just drive around the parking lot. I was like, okay. And we did it. Everything's fine. And now it's like weird to drive anything but this. But yeah, it was just the experience of the time I got to spend with him, doing that drive to Denver alone. I got to hear so many stories, and we talked all 13 hours that drive, and that's like time you're not going to get back.
No.
And then I got to do the build, and we joke that we really built this van 3 times because we built something, put it in, and it was not quite right. So we take it apart, kind of fix it, put it back, and it was so fun. And even if I told myself, even if I moved into it, I hated it, just that experience with my grandpa was completely worth every penny, every second. I'm really, really grateful that I got to do that with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you get to see him next weekend, which, this won't come out before then, but it'll still be exciting.
Yeah, they're in on the Oregon coast, and they've had this trip planned forever, and they go every summer, and I was like always gonna go, and now it's super hot in Davis and like 60 degrees on the Oregon coast, and I cannot wait. And the house they get, they just like put in a new like flat level spot and for like RVs, and I'm like, yes, they knew I was coming in the van. So I'm pretty excited, and he just texted me right now during this interview saying that he was looking up 12-volt fridges.
That man is a saint.
He's determined. He was like, so for the next van? I was like, whoa.
I love that, because my favorite part of my build was getting to do it with my dad, who I honestly didn't have a lot of a relationship with him prior to my build, but I'm like, hey Dad, I'm moving back, and it's gonna be father-daughter time, here we go. And yeah, like that's absolutely the best part. And he's also like, so in the next build, I'm just like, what are you talking like?
Dude, my dad does the same thing. My dad's like, okay, so for your next van.
Yeah.
And he sends me like listings sometimes. He'll be like, oh, I saw this. Would you like it? Like, it looks, like it's
yeah, that's
adorable. They
that's a
become
great
supportive.
van.
It's a great van. But I like this one that I made. Yeah. With your help, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to know what both of you would tell to yourself of maybe like 6 to 12 months ago, maybe just starting the journey or somewhere along the build, feeling really overwhelmed and unsure of yourself. What would you tell younger you? And let's start with Amy this time.
Younger me. Depends how far back we're thinking. But during van build, I think I would have told myself to just relax, and that everything really does happen for a reason, and it's all gonna work out fine, and you don't have to overthink it all. It's gonna be fine. I don't think a lot of me didn't totally worry about my build. It was more about what was gonna happen once I was in Davis, and it's all worked out fine. And I was overthinking and kind of worrying about a lot of stuff that I had zero control over. And so I would have told myself maybe to just surrender a little bit more to the process, to the journey, to what's happening, and maybe just take it a little bit more day by day than trying to plan the rest of my life.
Meg, what would you tell yourself of somewhere between 6 and 12 months ago?
somewhere between 6 and 12 months ago, I am like just probably looking for my van. And I thought it fast. I said, it was about 6 weeks, but I think that the word would have been like, it's gonna happen. Like, don't panic. It's gonna happen. And then the follow-up to that is keep doing absolutely everything that you're doing. Like, don't change a thing about anything, because I did my full build in about 5 months myself, and that's fast. When I talk to other DIY builders, like, they're like, yeah, no, I was working full time, so it took me like 8 to 12 months. And so I'm really glad for like the drive and the anxiety that I had that just like allowed me to pull really long nights and work, 14-hour days during the weekend. And so I have so much gratitude for myself that I went through all of that and I did all of that, and now I get to chill. Like, I'm consuming books in a hammock next to my van. And so I think that if I could do anything differently, it would have been to like, I used to be a bullet journaler. Like, I was hard into the journaling, and then I started my van, and I just didn't have time. It's all I did was van. And I wish that I would have just like taken a few notes every single day about what were the highlights? What did you learn today? Because like, man, I didn't know how to use a chop saw when I started, and now I'm like, chop saw, whatever. Like, that thing's dumb. Like, it's useful, but it's no big deal. Don't get too excited. And like, I learned so much that I would love to be able to like look back and see that learning journey happen. And to a degree, my like Instagram stories are that for me, like the light switch moments. Yeah. But taking a few notes every day, I would love to be able to go back and look back on that someday. And like, man, it seems like many of the van folks who I follow, they're like working on memoirs in the background. And I can totally see that. Like, this is such a cool, wonderful experience. And like, I feel things and think things so vividly now that my life is so simple that I wish I had a record of that. And like, how did I get here? So now I write a few bullets every single day, starting with where I slept at night, just to know. It's interesting. It's fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I could talk to both of you ladies for like hours, and you both listen to my podcast, but I'm not sure even you guys would listen to a podcast that was multiple hours long. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Meg, where can people come find you online if they want to see pictures of your beautiful van and see that wonderful wallpaper and your goofy little cat? Where can they find you?
The van, the wallpaper, and the cat, my Instagram is mymeg, MYMEG. And that's my only online presence at the moment, but I'm pretty active there. And so it's also just like a really good way to get in touch and chat.
Yeah. And Amy, how can people come find the Honey Wagon and Mowgli and you with your cute little smoky hat?
My Instagram is Amy with 2 Y's _ Sue. And from there, the Honey Wagon Instagram is linked in my bio. If you want to, honey season usually doesn't last long. Hopefully next year it's a little bigger, so it'll last a little longer. But I post almost weekly on there about bee behavior, cool bee stuff. So either of those Instagrams.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank both of you ladies for being here again, since we tried to record last week and there was user error in getting the thing done properly. And I really appreciate both of you ladies like being a part of the show and sharing your first experiences in the van, because I know there's so much going on, and especially at the beginning, like every day is different. Every day you learn something new, and every day feels like transformational. So, even recording this, last weekend, this week, I'm sure things feel totally different, and I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully that other people, especially women out there who are thinking about moving into vans, feel more empowered to take this journey. But I want to also thank everybody who has tuned into this episode. Any old episode of the show, I would not be here without y'all. Anyone who has ever listened or watched or read, Anyone who's ever given a thumbs up or a 5 stars, or especially subscribing or sharing with people who you think need to hear this information, that's awesome. We are an audience-supported show, so I do not take on sponsors. I will never have any annoying ad breaks. And so if you want to help offset some of the costs that go into creating the show, maybe get a little behind-the-scenes information, you can join my Patreon. I also have a Venmo and a PayPal set up. But yeah, I'm just happy that everybody's here. We've had like some, 6,000 or 7,000 downloads or something of the show. And that's just the audio version, which is fucking wild. But I want to thank everybody who's here and who's a part of this episode and any episode. And I hope you guys come back next week for another awesome show. Bye! We've reached the end of this episode of Deliberate Living. You can find the show notes and everything we referenced over on my website at www.hollycpriestley.com, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube, where I also publish weekly blogs and other informative videos. You can come join my Patreon community and get behind the scenes and bonus content, as well as postcards, stickers, and whatever else I choose to create. I'll see you next week on Deliberate Living, and until next time, keep your life on the